Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies, and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can hear this broadcast as well on our audio streaming through PBS Evox receiver app. Also on our shortwave broadcast through the shortwave frequencies of the English program. That's 15.640 megahertz, 17.750 megahertz, and 21.720 megahertz, and can be heard from 200 to 3:30 hours UTC. This is your host, Jerome Toledo. Let's begin Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
But before we go to our main discussion for today, we will have a significant development, particularly in the peace process, because the President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., administered the oath of office to Secretary Mel Sarmiento as the new presidential advisor on peace, reconciliation, and unity. And that ceremony happened on Wednesday, April 22nd. And the Presidential Communications Office has released the photos of Sarmiento's oath-taking at Malacanang Palace in Manila. And Secretary Sarmiento replaced former Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., whose retirement from the post took effect on Tuesday. That's on April 21st. Galvez on Tuesday announced his personal decision to step down from public service, which he cites his long overdue commitment to attend to his wife's health and devote more time for his family. And as presidential peace advisor, Secretary Sarmiento is tasked with overseeing the country's comprehensive peace process, advancing peace negotiations, and supporting the rehabilitation and social healing of former rebels and their communities under the Bagong Pilipinas agenda. And as we speak, Secretary Sarmiento served as the head of the Department of the Interior and Local Government from 2015 to 2016 under the presidency of the late President Benigno Aquino III. And Sarmiento began his public service as Vice Mayor of Calbayog City from 1992 to 1995. And he represented the 1st Legislative District of Samar for 2 consecutive terms from 2010 to 2015, and was the 3-term mayor of Calbayog City from 2001 to 2010. And having said that, the Malacanang on Tuesday said that Sarmiento's extensive background in local government and public administration equips him well for the task. And we hope the newly installed Secretary of the Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity will implement, or the new Secretary will implement current programs that is exclusively catered for our former rebels to return to the side of the government, so that there will be a nation, so that they can contribute to nation building. And we hope that Secretary Sarmiento will accomplish the task given to him by the president. And also, since let's switch to another developments, particularly on the case of 2 Filipino workers that was slain by their employer in Beirut in Lebanon, the Department of Migrant Workers is extending assistance to the families of two overseas Filipino workers or OFWs who were held hostage and killed by their employer in Beirut in Lebanon on April 15. Following the incident, Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak has directed Undersecretaries Bernard Olalia and Felicitas Bay to personally visit the bereaved families and assure them of government support. And the Migrant Workers Department assured that its Migrant Workers Office, in coordination with our embassy there in Lebanon, is working closely with Lebanese authorities to monitor the investigation and ensure the filing of appropriate charges against those employers. And DMW said that the Philippine government remains committed to securing justice for the victims and providing continued assistance to their families, including repatriation and access to benefits. And that's so it's a good thing that the government is taking action against these employers or abusive employers, and in this case, employers being involved in the death of our two kababayans there or fellow countrymen in that particular country. So we hope that the justice will be served, and the justice will be served against those employers who have killed those two Filipino overseas workers there in Lebanon. And back here in the country, particularly in the investment side, because the Board of Investments conveyed its readiness to facilitate business partnerships with Slovenian firms, citing the Philippines' pivot to positioning energy resilience as a core investment fundamental. And Board of Investment Executive Director Bobby Fondevilla made that statement at the event called Science to Business, Energy Resilience for Enhanced Security Forum, saying there was a strong alignment between Slovenia's capabilities in sustainable energy infrastructure and the Philippines' need and disaster preparedness and secure energy system. He said that the Board of Investment, or BOI, is open to facilitating joint ventures, technology transfer, and research and development collaborations, particularly with Slovenian firms offering dual-use technologies and artificial intelligence-enabled crisis management solutions. And Executive Director Fondevilla pointed out that Manila's investment strategy had been increasingly prioritizing projects that combine technology, sustainability, and resilience. And earlier, the Philippines formally joined the United States-led Pax Silica initiative, which involves establishing a 1,600-hectare industrial hub within the Luzon Economic Corridor. And that zone, Fondevilla said, will serve as the country's first AI, or artificial intelligence, native industrial acceleration hub designed to strengthen trusted supply chains in critical sectors. And one of those are semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, and electronics. Meanwhile, on the Slovenian side, the deputy head of mission of the Slovenian embassy here in the Philippines, Dragan Brabutovski, in the same forum described Slovenia as one of the most stable and export-oriented business environments in the world. Slovenia at present is deeply integrated into global value chains, with exports accounting for more than 80% of its gross domestic product, or GDP. And in 2025, the country's export grew by 17%, with a notable 32% expansion in non-European Union markets, demonstrating the international competitiveness of Slovenian companies. And speaking of deepening partnership between Philippines and other nations, the Department of National Defense said the Philippines and Canada have committed to helping one another beef up their communications and cyber defense capabilities. And that came as the National Defense Undersecretary for Information Systems and Cybersecurity, Fabian Pedregosa, received Canadian Joint Operations Command Commander Lieutenant General Stephen Boivin in a courtesy call in Camp Aguinaldo in Quezon City. The Canadian side provided an overview of the Canadian Joint Operations Command or CJOC, while Pedregosa shared key focus areas of the Department of National Defense cybersecurity framework. And cyber defense and cybersecurity cooperation emerged as a priority area, with both countries recognizing the importance of enhancing information sharing as well as training and coordination to address evolving cyber threats. And both nations noted progress under the Philippines-Canada SOVFA or the Visiting Forces Agreement, and explored opportunities for deeper collaboration in cyber governance, capacity building, and the development of resilient and secure digital infrastructure. And the two countries also discussed opportunities to strengthen cooperation in emerging technologies and defense capabilities, which include satellite communications, electronic warfare, and command and control systems, as well as subject matter expert exchanges, training, and education programs to enhance the interoperability and institutional linkages between the armed forces of the Philippines and the Canadian Armed Forces. Meanwhile, on military cooperation, the two officials noted that Canada's increasing participation in the joint and multilateral exercises, including its transition from being observer nation to being a participant in exercise or Balikatan exercises, and continued engagement in other regional activities. And Manila and Ottawa also reaffirmed their commitment to further enhance cybersecurity cooperations through coordinated exercises, strengthen cyber command structures, and sustain capacity building initiatives, and contributing to a secure and resilient digital environment and a free and open Indo-Pacific. And since we're talking about the defense capabilities, a Philippine Navy or ranking Philippine Navy official said the Comprehensive Archipelagic Defense Concept or CADC is designed to enable the country to defend its maritime domain, and it is not aimed against China. And Philippine Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad, said that CADC is not designed against any particular country, and that particular concept is designed to give the armed forces of the Philippines the modest capability to be able to secure and to protect our maritime domain, not only up to the EEZ or the exclusive economic zone, but even the extended continental shelf. And that is in response to questions of whether the CADC, which was operationalized in 2024, aims to counter Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea. And earlier, the Defense Department Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. said the CADC calls for the AFP to defend all of the country's territories, including its 200 nautical mile EEZ and so-called sea lanes of communication. And the CADC Secretary Teodoro Jr. said will allow the AFP to protect and guarantee the Philippine nationals as well as Philippine corporations and those authorized by the Philippine government the unimpeded and peaceful exploration and exploitation of all natural resources within the territory and other areas that the Philippines have jurisdiction. And Rear Admiral Trinidad said the AFP is ready for any increase in Chinese activities that might take place shortly after the 3-week Balikatan exercises that started April 20 and will end on May 8. And just to correct, the CADC, which Rear Admiral said will allow the AFP to protect and guarantee Philippine nationals. And so that's what Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad said, not by Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. And the spokesperson or the AFP spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea said the AFP is ready for any increase in Chinese activities that might take place shortly after the 3-week Balikatan exercises that started April 20 and will end on May 8. And observers earlier said Beijing often holds similar activities whenever Manila and its allies conduct a multilateral maritime cooperative activity. So those are some of the developments that happened here in the Philippines. So we've just discussed about the multinational cooperation between Philippines and some other nations, particularly Slovenia and Canada, and as well as the investigation surrounding the death of 2 Filipinas in Lebanon. So we will have more developments regarding that particular development. So we will have to wait and see on that, and what will be the outcome of the investigation on the deaths of the 2 Filipinas there in Lebanon. And when we come back here in the program, we'll discuss about the recent decision of the International Criminal Court, as the judges of the International Criminal Court Appeals Chamber affirmed the ICC's jurisdiction to try former President Rodrigo Duterte for crimes against humanity. So we will discuss more of that decision of the ICC with the attorney or lawyer for the victims of the drug war during the former drug war of the former administration, which is Rodrigo Roa Duterte. We will have attorney Gilbert Andres in the program after we go in, or after our break here in the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Stay tuned.
Garantisadong solusyon at aksyon ang handog sa iyo ng bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center. Sundin lang ang mga sumusunod para makakuha ng appointment. Para sa wala pang eGov.ph app account, panoorin ang video para malaman kung paano gumawa ng account. Kung meron ng account sa eGov.ph app, mag-login dito. Saka hanapin ang online registration tab para sa bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center. Pindutin ito para makita ang available na government services. Piliin ang serbisyo na iyong kailangan mula sa listahan. I-upload ang requirements ng serbisyong kailangan mo. Pumili ng petsa at oras kung kailan nais pumunta sa bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center. I-submit na ang iyong application at bigyan ng pagkakataon na ma-review ang iyong isinumiting requirements. Hintayin ang QR code para sa kumpirmasyon ng iyong schedule. Makakatanggap ka ng text message para malaman kung naaprubahan ito. Sakaling hindi ito maaprubahan, makakatanggap ka rin ng text message para ipaalam ang kulang na requirements sa kasubukang mag-register ulit. Kung nakatanggap na ng kumpirmasyon, maaari nang pumunta sa bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center sa napiling schedule, dala ang QR code at ang mga isinumiteng requirements. Huwag kalimutang dumating sa itinakdang araw at oras ng iyong appointment. Pinapaalala rin na siguruhing may kumpirmadong schedule bago pumunta sa bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center para maiwasang magpabalik-balik. Simple at user-friendly ang pagpapa-appointment dito, kaya wag nang mangamba dahil sa bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center, tulong ay abot kamay na.
Mabilisang trivia, dagdag talino. Heto na ang Dagling Kaalaman.
Alam nyo ba na walang pagkain ang tunay na zero calorie? Sa halip, may mga pagkain na nagtataglay ng mababang bilang ng calorie na nakatutulong sa pagbawas ng timbang. Ilan sa mga ito ang mansanas, peras, pakwan, pipino, celery, kimchi at broccoli. Ikaw, ano ang madalas mong kainin habang nagdidieta?
Kaunting kaalaman na malaking dagdag talino. Abangan muli ang susunod na Dagling Kaalaman.
Itinuloy na po natin ang zero balance billing. Libre po. Ibig sabihin, ang serbisyo sa basic accommodation sa ating mga DOH na ospital, wala nang babayaran ang pasyente.
Ang dami pong challenge, hindi po namin alam kung saan namin kukunin, ganon, nag-iisip kung paano namin mababayaran. Siyempre po, masayang masaya, super saya po dahil na zero billing po kami. Opo, malaking ano po talaga, malaking tulong po. Mabilis lang din po.
Bayad na ang bill ninyo. Uulitin ko, wala nang kailangan bayaran ng pasyente basta sa DOH Hospital dahil bayad na po ang bill ninyo.
Naiyak ako kasi sobrang saya. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. Hindi kami nagkamali ng taong ihinalal.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Still with me, Jerome Toledo. And now, we're now being joined by our guest for today, the ICC or International Criminal Court accredited lawyer, which is Attorney Gilbert Andres, to give us more insights regarding the recently the recent decision of the International Criminal Court affirming the ICC's jurisdiction to try the former president, Rodrigo Duterte, for crimes against humanity, because the appeals chamber rejected all four arguments raised by Duterte's camp, affirming the October 28 decision of ICC Pretrial Chamber 1 and denying the defense challenge to the court's jurisdiction over the case. And the appeals chamber by majority dismissed the appeal in full, with one judge issuing a partial dissent on the second ground. And to give us more insights regarding that, we now have on the line Attorney Gilbert Andres, the ICC accredited lawyer. Good day, Attorney Andres. Thank you so much for joining us in the program.
Good morning, Jerome, and good morning to the viewers of Front and Center.
Thank you so much. Okay, so yesterday the ICC released a decision rejecting rejecting four appeals of the Duterte's camp, or the defense team rather. Those four appeals. So those appeals are jurisdiction over a withdrawn state. Second, definition of a matter under consideration. Third is interpretation of the court, specifically the ICC, and the last, subjective or policy-oriented determination. So, what is your takeaway, or what are your key takeaways on the rejection of the International Criminal Court on all four appeals of the defense counsel?
I think the key takeaway is that the appeals chamber really affirmed the object and purpose of the Rome Statute, which is to end impunity for perpetrators of international crimes and to prevent such crimes. And because this is the object and purpose of the Rome Statute, any state party to the ICC cannot just evade its responsibilities under the Rome Statute by mere withdrawal, especially if the withdrawal is because it does not like the investigation of the prosecutor.
Okay. And how about, have you spoke to the victims of drug war of the Duterte administration? How they interpret that decision from the ICC?
On the part of the victims, they really celebrate the appeals chamber decision confirming jurisdiction, and they see it as an answered prayer. And they also see it as the triumph of the right to the truth, the right to justice for their murdered loved ones.
So this is like a gift to them, because those four appeals of the defense team has been rejected by the ICC. So having said that, Attorney Andres, the decision of ICC to reject all four appeals, by that particular decision, it will create a legal basis now where the International Criminal Court can still pursue a leader accused of crimes against humanity despite the country's exit at Rome Statute, particularly in this case, the ICC.
Yes, that's true, Jerome. And in fact, the implication there is that if there's a preliminary examination being done by the prosecutor before the effectivity of the withdrawal, that preliminary examination will not be prejudiced by any withdrawal, because it's such any matter already under consideration by the court. At we remember that the then prosecutor Fatu Bensouda opened the preliminary examination on the Philippine war on drugs last Feb 2018, and that was before the withdrawal took effect in March of 2019.
Yes. Yes, that's right. And also, just for a recap for our listeners and viewers, Attorney Andres. So those four appeals of the defense team, I'll just itemize here one by one. So the first appeal that ICC rejected is the jurisdiction over a withdrawn state. It's because they argued, the defense, that the pretrial chamber made a legal error by concluding that the ICC retains jurisdiction over a country that has already officially withdrawn its membership from the Rome Statute. So, meaning to say, yeah, the ICC can pursue cases, regardless if they still part of the ICC or they just left the ICC, right, Attorney Andres?
Well, as long as the Office of the Prosecutor already conducted a preliminary examination
Yes.
or an investigation proprio mutuo by its own power. So I think that's the most important takeaway, because that's in fact the essential context here in the Philippine situation.
And also, regarding that, the ICC rejected the second appeal of the defense team, which is a definition, a matter under consideration, and because the defense claims that pretrial chamber erred in ruling that a preliminary examination qualifies as a matter actively under the consideration of the court. So this is rejected by the court. And the third appeal of the defense team, Attorney Andres, is the interpretation of the court, because they argued that the pretrial chamber committed an error of law by interpreting the specific term, the court, as written in Article 172 or 127, sorry, I'm wrong, 127 of the Rome Statute to include the office of the prosecutor. What's your take on this?
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with the appeals chamber decisions. And in fact, it's just to take away all the technicalities, it's just affirming the object and purpose of the Rome Statute, which is provided for in Articles 1 and also in the preamble, which is to prevent impunity and to end international crimes. And because of that, there's actually a safeguard in Article 1272. That's how I look at Article 1272, such that any withdrawal cannot prejudice, cannot adversely affect any matter under consideration already by the court. And a preliminary examination is already any matter under consideration by the court. And because of that, the effect here is that any state party to the Rome Statute cannot just evade its responsibility by mere withdrawal, especially if there's already a preliminary examination by the prosecutor.
Okay, so it would not stop. Hence, the ICC would, or our exit from ICC would not stop the ICC from investigating leaders, or investigating leaders who have been accused of crimes against humanity. So from there, the ICC created a legal basis from that, and that's moving forward. Attorney Andres, should a leader of a certain country will face a similar situation?
Well, it means that number one is that impunity does not pay even in withdrawal. Number two, accountability still exists even in withdrawal. And number three is that state parties should really seriously consider their responsibilities under the Rome Statute, which is to prevent impunity and to end these international crimes.
All right, very well said. Okay, and the last appeal that ICC rejected is the subjective policy-oriented determination, because the defense team asserted that pre-trial chamber made a subjective policy-driven decision rather than strictly legal one when it permitted the investigation to continue. And I believe ICC has gathered or investigated the charges being laid to them, Attorney Andres.
Actually, there's no policy consideration because
Okay.
policy consideration is really political. But what the pretrial chamber did was to look at the object and purpose. And remember, since the Rome Statute is a treaty, it should be construed, it should be interpreted in line with the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties. That's why yesterday the appeals chamber actually quoted Article 31 of the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, which provides that any treaty provision should be interpreted in good faith, in the ordinary meaning, in accordance with the context and the object and purpose. And the object of purpose of the ICC Rome Statute is to prevent international crimes and to end impunity for perpetrators of these international crimes. So it was not a policy consideration. Rather, it's just an implementation of the object and purpose of the Rome Statute. And the rest of the provisions on jurisdiction, which are Articles 12 and 13, were interpreted by the pretrial chamber and by the appeals chamber in accordance with the object and purpose of the Rome Statute.
Okay, got it. Okay, and also, I hope you can answer this. Upon the decision of the ICC regarding the rejection of all four appeals of the defense team, so his interim release will not be possible any longer.
Now, let me clarify, because in the appeal brief of the defense, aside from praying that the appeals chamber reverse the pretrial chamber, they also prayed for his interim release. Now, what the appeals chamber decided yesterday was that the prayer in the appeal brief for interim release was already rendered moot and academic because, in fact, the appeals chamber confirmed the jurisdiction of the ICC over prosecutor versus Duterte. So that was the specific interim release prayer that was rendered moot and academic. Now, there's actually a yearly review, an annual review of any detention of any suspect before the ICC. That was actually the hearing last February 27,
Yes.
Friday. And the decision of the pretrial chamber on that annual review is still pending resolution. So we're also awaiting that resolution. We can expect that next week.
Yeah, next week. That's I think that's on April 28th.
That's actually April 30. That's the 60th day from the last working day after the Feb 27 hearing. And we also expect, more importantly, next week, April 30 or earlier than that, the decision of the pretrial chamber on the confirmation of the charges.
Okay, and we'll head there eventually. So, what are the effects of the decision of ICC to reject four appeals together?
I see three legal effects. Number one, it means that the pretrial chamber can go on with deciding the issue of the confirmation of the charges. Number two, the office of the prosecutor can continue on its investigation on the other 8 co-perpetrators of Mr. Duterte. And number three, if hopefully the pretrial chamber will say that this should proceed to trial, then the trial proceedings will continue on, hopefully.
Okay. And do you have estimates or timeline of how or how long the trial proper will run through?
Well, in terms of estimates, the first step is the decision next week. And then after that, next step is hopefully if it will go to trial proper, there will be a preparation for trial by the parties and participants. So the preparation for trial will take anywhere from 6 months until 1.5 years. So hopefully the earliest will be October of this year, or latest will be October of next year. Next, during the trial itself, it will take time. There will be presentation by the prosecution, then the presentation by us, the common legal representatives of the victims, then the presentation of the defense. And it will take anywhere from 1 to 2 years to 3 years. So that's the broad timeline.
Broad timeline, 3 years. And that depends on how the defense and the prosecution team will present their evidences.
Yes. But the peculiar fact here is that the charges against Mr. Duterte is one type. It's crimes against humanity for murder. Because for other cases, let's say Almadi or the other cases in the ICC, they're actually a combination of crimes against humanity as well as war crimes. But here, it's just one type of an international crime, crimes against humanity for murder, although there are 3 counts. So I think that's the peculiar fact that will be taken into consideration.
Okay. All right. So by then, what are your expectations on the upcoming decision of the ICC on the pretrial chamber? This is a phase 1, I think, Attorney Andres.
Well, the victims expectantly hope that the pretrial chamber confirm all of the 3 counts against Mr. Duterte. Because as we argued during the confirmation of charges hearing, the prosecution has presented enough evidence, substantial grounds to believe, to fulfill the necessary substantial grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte committed the crimes charged. Secondly, we also argued that the defense has not actually weakened, has not actually weakened the arguments and the prosecution, then the evidence of the prosecution. So the victims really hope that the chamber will confirm all of the 3 counts.
Okay. And for sure, eventually the pre-trial chamber will proceed into trial proper. But we don't have a decision yet. It's yet to be decided by the ICC. But then, how are you preparing for the possible trial proper of the former president at the ICC?
We're preparing by closely coordinating with the victims. And of course, we're trying to explain to our victim clients what's the process, what are the steps that will entail. And they do recognize and they do know this, that there will be many steps ahead towards their right to the truth and justice for their murdered loved ones. And we are there with them and they are there with us on these steps towards truth and justice.
And they will stick around and will be there to get to give justice, or to obtain justice, because their relatives are involved in the activities during the drug war of the former President Rodrigo Duterte. And we will be keep in watch in these developments, and we'll leave it from there. And with that, thank you so much, Attorney Gilbert Andres, the ICC accredited lawyer and representative of the victims of the drug war of the Duterte administration. Good day, Attorney Andres.
Thank you, Jerome, at mabuhay tayo.
All right, and with that, we now conclude this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our technical team headed by Mr. Milo Janela, on Warcast and audio live stream, we have Mr. Hiro Lucero. And this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.